Hey friends, what's up? In this video, I'm going to walk you through a successful college application written by a student who took my online courses and was accepted to a selective college, which I'll tell you about in just a minute. I want to walk you through not just the personal statement, which is lovely, but also the student's activities and awards lists, their additional information section, and finally their supplemental essays. I want to talk to you about what I think the student did really well and how I would define successful when it comes to this process, because I think it's often undefined or poorly defined. Quick shout out to the student who let me use her essays for this. Thank you so much. I'm keeping some of her details anonymous to protect her identity, but here's her actual personal statement. My mom has the coolest eyes you will ever see. Resembling somewhere between the ocean surrounding a Caribbean island and the share button on a Google Doc, her eyes, and thus her genes, spell out very clearly that the OCA2 promoter should not produce melanin in her iris. My dad, albeit with significantly less cool eyes that look similar to a cloudy day, has fallen victim to the same mutation. Now, she's already in the first few sentences doing some really lovely things. First of all, she's setting up two of the major themes of her essay. One is family, and the other is science and her interest in it. And she's also doing something that I call using geeky language, which is to say she's sprinkling in a little bit of jargon to let us know that she really knows what she's talking about when she's talking about her academic area of interest, in this case, science. Now, in the rest of this paragraph, she mentions her sister, and then at the end of this, she brings in a little humor, where she says basically their genes represent some shared traits, like a shared hatred of honey mustard, a shared memory of my sister lighting her hair on fire for her birthday, parentheses, she was fine, and a shared need to question the unknown. So what I love is she's basically showing qualities, one, that connect her to her family, but two, that are qualities that she's going to bring to the college campus, including sense of humor. And she sets up this theme of need to question the unknown, which is, you don't know this yet, but it's going to be one of the major themes of the essay, and it's going to be where she ends. So I'm not going to read you through the whole essay. I want to talk you through it, though, and tell you what I think works really well. In the second paragraph, she expands on this notion of exploration, and she talks about early experiences that she had in life with her sister, where they would go out and explore on missions, where they would basically go hiking kind of in their neighborhood. And, her sister would basically carry her backpack, and she would say, but when my microscope finally came, I'd let her, meaning her sister, look at what we found, sometimes. So she's, again, continuing the sense of humor. She's saying, hey, this sense of exploration is something that's been with me for a long time, and she's continuing the theme of family. And even though she was like studying these amazing things and her mind was getting blown, she says, I might get lost in the city or forget which subway to take. My dad may have to come rescue me, joking about how I can micro-inject in the perfect spot, but get lost in a city with numbered streets. So again, family, humor, themes that she's staying with. And then she ends by talking about saying, basically, I'll read it to you. She says, living in a household of explorers comes with its challenges. Sometimes we neglect to dust, and sometimes we forget to order groceries until there's only one stale box of pasta in our cupboard. But my absent-minded family of best friends, and then she says with eyes like, and she lists all the, the chemical combinations. She says, cracking open rocks and insisting that CRISPR cuts are just like deleting sections of code on a computer are always up for an adventure. So some lovely things that she's doing, including weaving in a couple details that demonstrate things like intellectual curiosity, and in the case of her research project, collaboration, and lots of core values. In addition to her personal statement, her activities list was lovely. She starts off, number one activity, talking about her independent research work. She keeps it brief. She emphasizes all of the different responsibilities she had. And then her second activity, rather than saying, hey, I do more research, is she talks about a particular organization that she helped found and emphasizes her social justice work and the impact that they've had. And she uses really specific numbers in her activities list to show that she's had an impact. She talks in her other activities about other research opportunities that she had. She worked in Model United Nations in her school. She was also part of a political awareness club. She emphasizes some different leadership responsibilities she had, like, she was helped organize the chemistry club. And then she organized some different social justice events that she talks about. What she does a really lovely job is in 150 characters, these really short descriptions, she emphasizes what she's done, how she's shown qualities like leadership and responsibility, and again, lots of numbers to illustrate that impact. Her award section looks like the award section for lots of students that I've seen. She's got AP Scholar with distinction. There was a particular summer program that she was chosen for, and she was Student of the Month. One thing I'll say for the award section is if you were selected for something, it's not a bad idea to include that you were selected and out of how many students you were selected. In her additional information section, which I think is an oft underused part of the application, she builds on her research just a little bit more. So she expands on, here's the particular project with the professor. This is what we worked on. I don't think this, yeah, she wasn't actually published in a paper, but if you were, you can include that. But she basically gives some geeky language that represents sort of an abstract, which is like a summary of the work. She also expands a little bit on the volunteer work that she did. She had a couple different projects that she didn't have enough room to mention or describe really in full in the activities list. And then she mentions a couple other things that she was involved with. She was part of a leadership summit. But one of the things I think she really crushed was her supplemental essays. And before I get into those, I want to tell you briefly about my online courses that she took. In the first course, it was on how to write a personal statement. And essentially in this course, what I do is I walk you through my favorite brainstorming exercises ever for finding a topic or topics that are elastic, which is to say stretchy enough to talk about lots of different sides of you, and uncommon, which is to say something that not other students are going to be writing about. I walk you through how do you take this idea from to, from abstract thing to like put it on the page. How do you create an outline? How do you draft it? How do you create the pieces of it? And then we talk about how to revise and up-level it so that it's awesome. And then I talk to you about how do you know when the essay is actually done? Once the personal statement is in really good shape, second part of the course is how to create an awesome application in supplemental essays. So how do you make that activities list really speak on your behalf and show all the awesome things that you've done, that you've achieved? How do you make your additional information section fill in extra context about you? And how do you make those supplemental essays particular for the schools that you're applying to and what kind of research you need to do? So all of that, I hope you'll join me if you're interested. I'll share a link below on how you get into that. And by the way, there's no barrier to joining because first of all, if you don't like the course, you can just get a refund. But second of all, if you look at the price and you're like, I can't afford that, we have pay what you can spots. So I'd love for you to join us. So the school she ended up getting into was Dartmouth. And well, that's where she ended up attending. She got into a bunch of schools. But she says in her Why Dartmouth essay, on a three-dimensional graph, Dartmouth is the intersection of science, x equals 1, humanities, y equals 1, and global understanding, z equals 1. At point 1, 0.25 stands dinosaurs, so a particular course. While at this other point on the graph stands castles, cloisters, and cathedrals. So what she's basically doing is saying Dartmouth is interdisciplinary, which is good because she sets up for the next paragraph and it's super short. In our three-dimensional world, Dartmouth prepares the next generation of students to move beyond X and Y. As a researcher, activist, and artist, I know I have to find a college that allows me to grow in all directions. I know Dartmouth is exactly that. So just lovely, beautiful. And oh, by the way, fun fact, she ended up reusing the structure for other Why Us essays that she was working on. Her next essay, which is about her experience, developing and sort of like being curious about math, was also an essay that she used for multiple schools. This is part of a technique I call writing a super essay, which is to say, how do you write not 30 essays, but how do you write 3 to 5 really solid essays that you can reuse for multiple different prompts? I'm not going to read the whole essay to you, but essentially it involves her standing in front of a piece of art at the Met Museum. Her sister's like, I don't get it. And she's like, it's math. And then she says, no pun intended, but that's the point. So she talks about how basically math, when she first she kind of wasn't really into it. And then she had this aha moment around math. And she started to see how geometry, calculus, it connects to so many different things, including art and philosophy. And it kind of blew her mind. She started to take like Coursera courses. And she says at the end, besides being the bane of school children everywhere, and maybe my family at the dinner table, graph theory underlies the methods with which we perceive our universe. Both literally and figuratively, the possibilities are limitless. So boom, like a huge sort of like math blows my mind. Lots of specifics that include specifically how math blows her mind. And she demonstrates essentially, I'm going to be able to do Dartmouth level work. When it comes to defining success in your application, I love that this student got into Dartmouth, got into an Ivy League school. Awesome. But I would caution you against basically making your success based on whether or not you get into a particular school. Because I would say it's maybe more useful and probably like stress reducing if you define success based on things that you can control. So you can't control whether you're going to get into a highly selective school or not, but you can control this. Is your essay and application a great demonstration of the skills, qualities, values, and interests that you're going to bring to a college campus. Because if you can do that, that to me is what you can control. And that's going to be the best way to give yourself a great shot at lots of different schools, because there's so many awesome schools out there. Again, would love for you to join on my courses. If so, details below, and I'll see you on another video.